Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you. Today was the 23rd anniversary of WWE Monday Night Raw, coming to you live, of course, on the USA Network for almost a majority of those years, the small time that they spent on Spike TV before returning with Raw Homecoming back in the day. This is a review / look at Raw The Beginning, the best of seasons 1 and 2 of WWE's Monday Night Raw. You take a look at a lot of classic faces throughout there. A lot of Hall of Famers on his cover, of course. Shawn Michaels. We see Mr. Perfect, The Undertaker, Yokozuna, Bret Hart, and Doink. All of those performers, except for Doink, all members of the WWE Hall of Fame. All real big pieces of history of WWE's Monday Night Raw back in the beginning. This 4-disc set. You have a 2-disc set looking at the best of season 1 and the best of season 2. Was a really good idea on WWE's part, and basically over at WWE DVD News, they did a story a few years ago saying that the WWE Monday Night Raw, or I apologize, WWE DVDs division was not going to continue on. Yeah, I think the best of season 3, the best of season 4, maybe if they just changed it to the best of 1993 or the best of 1994, something like that would have been a great idea for this set to continue. I know that somewhere around 2009, 2010, they started coming out with the best of Raw, the best of SmackDown, and then they combined it to be the best of Raw and SmackDown, basically the best of WWE's television. But there's a lot of missing years that don't have their own best ofs. I know that there's like at least 5 best of Monday Night Raw compilations, a lot of older ones. Just talking about the history, possibly the best one might be the best of Raw 10th Anniversary. That's a really good set with a lot of moments on there. And of course, they have the DVDs that were probably released around 2003, 2004. WWE's Best of Raw Volume 1 and 2. But take a look. These pop out. They come in 2 different sets, unlike a lot of the 3-disc sets. Of course, like I said, this is a 4-disc set. Both of them have the same covers, a lot like the first one. Pop it open. You got Bret Hart there on disc 3. I'm looking at the wrong one. We'll start with 94. No, let's flip it over. We'll just open the other one. It's not like it's that big of a deal. Flip this over. Boop, there it is. Kona Crush right there. Disc 1, 1993. There you go. 1993, disc 2. You got 1, 2, 3 Kid and Marty Jannetty. That probably was a great main event back in the day. But you take a look at this, a lot of matches that you'll remember. And because you were a kid, you remember these a whole lot more. Of course, there you are, Koko Beware versus Yokozuna. Undertaker versus Damien Demento. That, of course, is from the first edition of Monday Night Raw. That I see possibly the biggest main event of Raw at that time was Ric Flair against Mr. Perfect. Loser leaves WWE match where Ric Flair went back to WCW. We see the death of Andre the Giant. Lex Luger against Jason Knight. Brutus the Barber Beefcake against the Ted DiBiase $1 Million Man. The Mega Maniacs. That's, of course, Hulk Hogan's debut on Monday Night Raw. Bret Hart versus Fatu. Some of these matches are just pretty damn funny. Doink the Clown, Pie Faces Elvis. Crush on the Sands of Hawaii. I don't know what that is. Mr. Perfect versus the Rick the Model Martel. Then we see Doink versus Kamala. Luger versus Crush. Mr. Perfect attacks Shawn Michaels. That's, of course, where they brawl on top of Howard Finkel's car. Shawn Michaels versus Hacksaw. Lumberjack for the IC belt. The Kid versus Razor, the biggest upset in wrestling history. Marty Jannetty versus Shawn Michaels. I think that's an Intercontinental title change. Then we see Mr. Perfect versus Doink for the King of the Ring. Then we see some special features. The Smoking Guns ride into the WWE. It's only 9 o'clock. I don't know what that is. Knuckleheads. So show how old this is. Then we see Shawn Michaels versus Russ Greenberg. I don't know why that match would be there. Marty Jannetty versus Doink the Clown. 2 out of 3 falls. That's another one. I wonder why that happened. Yokozuna Body Slam Challenge. That's where Yokozuna was slammed by Lex Luger, where he turned into the Lex Express, red, white, and blue. Bret Hart versus Bam Bam Bigelow. Jim Cornette arrives in the WWE. Macho Man Randy Savage versus Doink the Clown. The 1, 2, 3 Kid versus the Ted DiBiase. The Quebecers versus the new tag team champions. Oh, the Quebecers are the new tag team champions. I remember when they won the titles, in like a Canadian rules match, but I thought that was on Raw. Maybe that was at a house show and then they just showed it on Raw that way to surprise the world. Doink. Razor Ramon versus Rick the Model Martel Intercontinental Championship match, where the two of them the week before finished number 1 and number 2 in a battle royal, which made them a number 1 and number 2 contenders for the IC belt. Crush hires Mr. Fuji. Randy Savage attacks Crush. Bret Hart, his Wrestler of the Year. Razor Ramon versus Diesel. 1, 2, 3 Kid versus Shawn Michaels. Best of the click right there. We see Gorilla Monsoon throws out Bobby Heenan, where Heenan would leave WWF to go to WCW. Sparky Plug, Jeff Jarrett. Then we'll go on to the special features. We see Double J, Jeff Jarrett, King Kong Bundy. ARS taxes the dead. Jeff Jarrett does Vegas. Christmas at the Heartbreak Hotel. Bret Hart wishes everyone a Happy New Year. Oh, great. Then we'll go over and we'll take a look at 1994 here. Flip this bad boy open. We got Bret Hart. I think we just looked at this a second ago. And then we see Jim the Anvil Neidhart and 1, 2, 3 Kid. Is Yokozuna afraid of the casket? The coin flip for who gets to fight Yokozuna first at WrestleMania 10. Bret Hart versus Tom Pritchard. The Quebecers versus Razor Ramon and the 1, 2, 3 Kid. Shawn Michaels locker room interview. Yokozuna versus Macho Man Randy Savage. Great match. Great match. But for some reason, I thought that was like filmed closer to like the 4th of July. Because Savage is all dressed up in red, white, and blue. And I thought that he was like fighting for the pride of America at that time. But I guess that's just how your mind plays tricks on you. Ted DiBiase buys front row seats. Lex Luger versus Rick the Model Martel. 10-man tag. I think that tag was supposed to be like, it doesn't make sense. It wouldn't have been at in London. Maybe that match was supposed to be on one of the WrestleManias, and they ran out of time, so I think they put it on Raw instead, and maybe that's why it's on there. Debut of the Heartbreak Hotel. Jerry the King Lawler is dropped on his head. Then we see Razor Ramon versus Jeff Jarrett. The Quebecers versus the Head Shrinkers. Yokozuna versus Earthquake. Owen Hart versus Doink the Clown. Duke the Dumpster Drosy, the King's Court with Bret Hart, Not So Rowdy on the King's Court, the King's Court with Dukes the Dumpster Drosy, the King's Court with the King of Hearts. Flip this over, see disc 4 here, for the ending of 1994, Bret Hart versus the 1, 2, 3 Kid, great match. Diesel versus Lex Luger, Tatanka versus Nikolai Volkov, Alundra Blaze versus Bull Nakano, Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon, Owen versus the 1, 2, 3 Kid, Undertaker versus Quang. Then we see Bob Backlund demonstrates the chicken wing, Razor versus Yoko, Jeff Jarrett versus British Bulldog, Bob Backlund versus Joint the Clown, the British Bulldogs versus Tatanka, the King's Court with Diesel, and Undertaker versus the Brooklyn Brawler to finish up the best of 1994. So that is Raw the Beginning, the best of seasons 1 and 2. Really good DVD just to really look over where WWE Monday Night Raw came from and how it became the #1 wrestling show in all of wrestling. So a great DVD. It's probably only going to cost you a couple of bucks if you go over to Amazon, check this out new, and you'll probably get a whole lot of good childhood memories out of this one.